Good afternoon, good morning. Thank you for joining us. We are on today's webinar, talking about data management and why it is the investment that a business can't afford to ignore. I'm Sophie Swift. I'll be your host and moderator today. And I'm joined by a fabulous panel, Antony Marlow, who is Director of Data Management for us here at Cynozure, and Rose Attridge, who is one of our data management consultants at Cynozure, both of whom have a plethora of expertise and experience in this sector. So really looking forward to hearing their tips and tricks and bits of advice and experience on this session today. Before I dive straight in, guys, I've got a very small bit of housekeeping. I promise it will take me 60 seconds. You guys are really up to speed with Teams by this point, so I'm not going to teach you how to suck eggs. But if you do want to comment and let us know where you're dialing in from, please do that in the chat. If you have comments, questions as we go through the content today, we'd love to hear from you, hear what's resonating, hear if some of these challenges are recognised by you and your team. We love to hear from people attending. So please do post any comments, questions in there. And if we can drop them in to our panel today, I'll try and do my best to do so. Just looking at who is on this session, I can see that some people are coming back, have been to our webinars in the past. So thank you so much for joining us again. If this is your first time coming along to a Cynozure webinar, welcome. I'll share a little bit about who we are. We are a data and analytics company, and we support organisations to reach their data potential. What we mean by that is we support clients right across the data journey. So for some clients, that might look like, I'm confused about what I should be doing with data. I need support around a data and AI strategy. Others need help executing that and driving business value from the data function. And that can come under the functions of data management, which we're talking about today, or tech, architecture, AI, data literacy, you name it. We work with a broad range of clients and lots of brands that you'll recognise. And I think one of the really nice things about sessions like this is you get a very broad mix of people from different industries, from different sectors, with varying levels of experience too. And you can always learn something from another industry. And I know Rose and Antony will be sharing what they've learned from working in these different industries today. So that's my 90 seconds. Hope I kept to my promise there. Very keen to dive straight in, Rose and Antony. Thank you for joining us. If I can go straight into today's panel then, because I know that we've got a short, sharp session. We've got 30 minutes today. I think let's talk about why data management is so critical for business success. I mean, when we speak to data leaders, and certainly when I speak to data leaders, I see that there is such a wide range of understanding around data management, and some don't understand very much, some understand lots, some don't even see it as their job to understand. So perhaps could you sum up in your own words why you think data management is so critical for businesses? Maybe if I ask you first, Rose, please.
Sure, yeah. From my perspective, I think it's a really broad question. Why is data management critical to this success? And it's a really personal one, depending on the business you're operating in and the level of maturity. So I guess I can bring to life a little bit my experience of why it's been so critical. So when I moved into the data space, there was a real burning issue around understanding data protection and privacy and GDPR across a very complex, messy landscape of business units. And I really lent into that, which later sort of helped me gain a lot of credibility and buy-in and starting to branch out from there. So I think risk is a really nice space to kind of lean into initially if you're struggling to get buy-in with data management generally, because you just can't ignore it. And the other angle that served me really well is looking at it from a real kind of business customer experience outcome lens. So like, for example, I did a lot of work in data management and master data management around products. And rather than me just kind of go in and be like, hey, we need to do master data management, I was very much focused on like the impact and the issues for the customer. So one example would be selling products on the web and a customer wouldn't be able to search for the products that they wanted because the data behind it was not where it needed to be in terms of quality or flowing through the business and the operation and the systems in the right way. So I think criticality of business success really depends on what journey you're on and what's really important to your business and your customers in that moment in time. And I would just lean in to whatever those use cases are that are a really hot topic.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Anthony, you have been doing this for lots of years now. I hope you're not going to hate me for saying that. But why you must have seen, what I'm getting at is you must have seen lots of examples of what, where this can really help a business. Why do you think data management is so important for organizations?
Yeah, so first of all, I can confirm I'm starting to get old, as it's true.
That's not what I'm
been around for a long time. Look, I think you both know this, and people in the business know. I'm actually quite passionate about this subject in particular, the why rather than the what and the how. We'll talk about that in a second. For me, I guess I can't shake off my business analyst roots, which is the purpose of what we're trying to achieve through whatever skills and experience that we each bring to the party. So for me, the why is all about, as Rose talked about, customer experience, enabling a business. How is it going to help it grow its revenue? How's it going to help it grow its reach or its profitability if it's a commercial organization? And then there's the risk aspects too. So, I'm a big believer in, if you look at business problems in particular, but certain opportunities as well, when you look at business problems, that kind of classic root cause analysis, many of the issues have a root cause in some kind of data management challenge, whether it's about the quality of the data, the labeling of the data, the availability, all those kind of plethora of things. And something we talked about in other webinars, it's that fundamental building block is the first thing. And I think the outcome that you see, apart from customer experience, for example, or friction that exists in a business for an organization's people, it's hard to work, it's hard to do things, it's clunky, it's confusing. I don't know where I'm going, I don't know who to go and speak to. I think there's a professionalism aspect to this as well, isn't there? How bad is it? We talked about a recent example with a client and a website where the quality of the data is visible for all to see. And to be perfectly honest, it's not great. It's not great. It doesn't feel professional for an organization that's reselling to the public, for example. And yes, there might be occasional errors, but when it's at a certain scale, then it starts to become unprofessional. So that's an important factor.
Absolutely. I mean, and Rose was talking there about a business that she's seen where customers couldn't search for the right products. I've had that with some of my own subscription orders in the past, and it's really disappointing from the customer side because I want to give them money. I'm wondering if you've got any other examples from your experience that you can attach a pounds and pence value to, as to where better data management has directly impacted real value.
Yes, certainly. If I maybe take this one, so many jump out of me. The kind of two really big ones that spring to mind are a piece of work we did with a logistics company. Classic landscape, they'd grown rapidly through acquisitions, therefore there were lots of different silos in the business. And in logistics, it was all about the different services. Because they'd acquired lots of different businesses that were similar but not the same, then how they set up all the services, they had about 20 different services and they were set up in about 5,000 different ways. I mean, it was absolutely crackers. So we just drove some consistency in there about, comparing apples and apples and pears for kind of an analogy. And through that, they could then start to apply some pricing logic. Because the real challenge they had was about, in the last 2 to 3 years, inflation has gone wild. What is the impact of that to business performance and profitability? And what they couldn't really work out was, how can we, in a sensitive way, increase pricing for customers and do that appropriately to different customers. Customers of certain scale and size would be able to absorb more uplift, for example. So, the whole business outcome was about profitability, but the enabler was data management. That was a piece of
Amazing.
work that returned something like in the region of £6.77 million. I think that was just one action we did there for a very short, sharp piece of work. So that's probably my favourite.
Yeah.
Another one
I
with an
think,
automotive. Sorry, go on,
yeah,
Sophie.
no, go on. I was going to say, when you see numbers like that, it's
Yeah,
really, really clear, isn't it, that data management is critical? Like nobody would question that. And
yeah.
I'm wondering, why do businesses find it so hard to get right?
You want to go first,
I
Rose?
can jump in.
Where to
Yeah,
start?
I know. I think, again, in my experience, I think often people maybe sit in a centralized tech or data team and can sometimes come at it from a more technical angle and not necessarily sort of explain things in a way that the business understands or they kind of get the outcome of. So that's one of the reasons why I ended up in data and why my previous boss phoned me up and said, "Hey Rose, I really need your help because I've hired a few people now and we haven't managed to land any kind of data management or governance, rigor or framework across our operation because we're just coming at it from a very kind of technical perspective and what I brought to the table that was different was my operational knowledge. So I understood how the business operated and what it was they were trying to achieve, and I could really simplify the language to help them understand what it was we were trying to do. The other thing that served me really well is just taking a very collaborative approach. So I really kind of flipped the switch on its head in that as many of you probably experience as well, everyone kind of sees data management and governance, etc., as a data team problem. And yeah, I flipped that on its head. So I was like, I'm going to create the visibility for you in terms of where all the issues are, and I will certainly hold your hands through this. But ultimately, you are accountable out in the business for doing something about it and caring about it. So yeah, I positioned myself as I'll help facilitate and give you all the visibility in the world and hold your hand, but you need to be accountable. And that's kind of how I solved the silo issue. And then bringing people together via a committee, like I say, rather than it just being like, okay, CIO, you're accountable for this. It was like, right, let's get all of the key stakeholders across the different business functions, business units, and all get them to collaboratively agree this is what we're going after.
Brilliant. And you've segued us perfectly into our next section. So thank you for that, whether that was intentional or not. Thank you, Rose. But you've alluded to it's sometimes an elephant in the room when we talk about data management, isn't it? In that some people think that it's not the most exciting topic when it comes to data, and some people think it's the work of the data team and it's something they do in their back office and doesn't touch anybody else. But actually, there are that is one of the challenges of data management, that does make it hard to get buy-in and investment. And I'm wondering what your thoughts on, Anthony, Rose, on how you could get an organisation to invest in data management. Maybe if we come to you first, Anthony.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say that it's absolute cobblers because data management is clearly the coolest part of
Yeah.
the world of data right now. I'm slightly being facetious there, but actually, it's quite interesting that it feels like as much as AI is exploding and everyone's interested in that's the hottest topic right now, slightly tempering after the kind of initial burst at kind of Christmas time, and here we are in kind of April, May, and reality is starting to hit. But people are, I think this is the year of data management 2025 because people are slowly realizing that data management is going to help with things like AI initiatives and digital initiatives. So I think this is a timely opportunity for us all who work in data and data management, and it's not just data management governance specialists. So for me, how can you make it happen? First one is avoid wicked problems. I think that is so often I've seen that in the past where people take on a quite complex, meaty problems first up and try and tackle them. And I think you're setting yourself up for failure at the first hurdle. So just having a very sensible scope of work. And I think a key thing that we help a lot of customers with as well is about thinking of the feasibility of what they're going to try and tackle. So it's great to work out on some opportunities, but if you pick up what's the potential and the capability you already have to go and tackle those opportunities, that is absolutely crucial. Because what you then need to do is think about getting some early wins and then celebrating that success. And I think we'll talk about that in a second as well. But that's really crucial because so much of data management is actually business change. You can learn a lot from business change and apply it backwards into data management.
Brilliant.
What's your thoughts, Rose?
I love what's going on in the comments right now, because yeah, it's so true what you've just said. Not exciting, but when framed around risk, revenue and customer, everyone gets on board. And that's very much my experience too. Rather than talking about, I'm doing this thing in data, I'm always like, okay, what is the business outcome we're trying to achieve by doing this? If I talk to a chief marketing officer, what is it you're trying to do that you can't do right now? I want to be able to personalize offers to my customers on the web, but I can't because I can't segment my customers. Okay, well, that's a data problem. Let me help you work through that and ensure that you're getting everything you need. So yeah, very much talk about business outcomes, like you say, whether it's customer risk. Risk is always a really nice one to play on. If you're struggling to get buy-in from anywhere else, I would start there, because a business just can't ignore it. And the other thing that's always served me really well is speaking to someone in finance, ideally a finance director or the CFO, and I will just ask them, what is hurting us the most right now? What's impacting our bottom line, our profit, our margin? And I'll work backwards from there, because usually they'll give you some really key insight into where the biggest challenges lie.
Perfect. That sounds like you've had experience of the FD being an exec sponsor in the past. Well, firstly, how important is it to have an executive sponsor, and what makes that exec the right sponsor for data management, in your opinion?
Shall I jump in?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So this has been absolutely crucial for me, particularly, like I said, when I tried to flip things on its head from everyone thinking that data was my problem, to me starting to hold more people out in the business accountable for solving and caring about some of this stuff. And it was difficult. I'm not going to lie. There were some uncomfortable conversations, and I had to push back a lot. So like I said, I was always very helpful. Like, I'm here to support you, but really I'm just giving you visibility of the issue and letting you know how it's impacting you. And I could not have done that without the backing of my CIO at the time. So I think, yeah, if you're trying to get a message out to the business to, I don't know, take a more collaborative approach, or flip that switch like I did, then just make sure that you've got someone who has got some real kind of clout in the room, and get their blessing and support before you start trying to have that conversation. Because at the point where I started running committees with some very senior people and execs in the business, like I said, there would be a lot of pushback. Like, I'd be like, hey, did you know you've got 200 account closures happening every month because you're breaching data in store? And then someone would turn around and be like, okay, Rose, what are you going to do about it? And I'd be like, no, what are you going to do about it? And I couldn't have done that without knowing that I had the full support of the CIO and the backing on that. So yes, get somebody who can really kind of have your back in those moments where you're trying to really create change.
I love that. Thank you. Anthony, one of the things that I hear you talk about a lot is starting small and delivering value quickly. Like, what does that actually look like in anger and data management?
Well, for me, I think it's about getting something specific, problem-wise. Give yourself a nice tight scope and remit. I think it's about using what things you have today, even if you've got very little, even if it's your own time, your own tool sets. It's getting started on the journey and learning and iterating, refining. I think the key word is about iteration here. And probably a little bit like we're hinting towards at this slide here, it's about a coalition of the willing. Rose, as you talked about there, it's about, data to me is a team sport. And I don't mean it's a data team sport. It's the business, it's the organization who have to collaborate, and it's getting that recognition. that's part of the challenge of getting, success underway. So yeah, for me, it's starting small, being limited, think about the process and the people steps and the data aspects, and then thinking about the technology and the automation afterwards. Because again, another misstep that we quite often see is that people go and buy the silver bullet of a technology thinking it's going to solve all ails. And really that leads them astray in terms of focusing on the technology and the shiny box syndrome. Just tackle the problem in terms of whatever root cause it might be. It could be a people, process, the data quality challenge, but be specific about it.
Okay, brilliant. So that's really good advice around how we can get the organisation to buy in to data management. And we've alluded a little bit in our conversation about making it really engaging and relevant for people who aren't data folk across the organisation. Rose, you've given some really good tips and pointers on this. If you're talking to someone who is not a who is a data person, and I know that your experience comes from the other side as well, but if you're talking to a data person, what would you say they could do differently in how they talk about this with stakeholders?
Yeah, really good question. You have to speak the business language, would be my killer recommendation. Yeah, I think make sure you always bring it back to the outcomes and what they're trying to achieve. What is it that matters to them? So I spent a huge amount of time working on a big data migration, and as you can imagine, there were a whole ton of business data quality issues, and we had to kind of remap the data and get it to fit a different model, and yeah, just endless amounts of data that needed cleaning up. And the way that I managed to get people engaged in doing that was by helping them understand the consequences and what really mattered to them in that part of the business. So I know for products, if something had multiple barcodes or it was missing a GS1 code or something, I'd be like, well, the consequence of that is stock inaccuracy. And then your customers are going to be going to the web thinking that there's 2 in stock at this place, and then they rock up to click and collect and it's not there. Like, that damages your reputation, and it's a real tangible issue. Or maybe the numbers might not add up on your general ledger, and that's a real finance issue. So I think whenever you're talking about solving these challenges, make sure you're bringing it to life for whoever you're talking to and the things that they care about in their business areas.
Love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're talking about storytelling and language here. Maybe if I come back to you, Anthony, do you have examples on where using this type of language has helped make it more relevant for the business?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I would just echo what you just said there, Rose. Obviously, we talk about it all the time, and what Scott was saying in chat there as well. It's about making this business accessible. So dropping jargon, dropping acronyms. People who know me very well know I love an analogy, trying to bring things to life. I think the real trick in what we do is, a wise man once said to me, we shouldn't totally remove any data concepts in what we're explaining. We should just explain them better. And I think that for us as a profession, whether you're a highly technical resource or somebody who's very business engaged, we all have responsibility to varying levels of degrees, and I don't think that's quite recognized. Even people working technical roles need to think about how they can, myth bust and remove jargon and make things very simple concepts that we can all grasp. So, for me, when I go and engage with business leaders and people in the organization when we're undertaking projects, it's about bringing it to life through that lens. So, as Rose said, it could be that we're talking about, one example being a retailer we work with, where it was so painful for them to create new products. So really, the underlying data management issue was product data management. That was the enabler. But the outcome was what should have taken hours and minutes took days and weeks. And therefore, they couldn't refresh their range of products more than once a year. And you can imagine the impact that had, that business, on actually staying relevant to what their customers wanted. Huge impact. So talking about the fact that, going to talk to the C-suite and explain to them look, the reason you can't update your range of products is because of X, Y, Z, and it's a technical issue. It's those kind of threads, isn't it, from an initial data management issue right through to a business outcome. Another one you reminded me to mention was about the whole tap story with the construction company.
Yeah.
You know, challenging about how many taps have you got, what taps have you got, where are they the right type, are they being consumed in the projects you're doing for your various customers, banks, building societies, retailers, shops and stores. Again, just bring it back down to earth in terms of, you know, things that people can relate to. That's key.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both. That's really, really useful pointers, and I've definitely enjoyed listening, talking to you. We've got 3 minutes left of our session. These sessions always fly by. It feels like we're talking for just a few minutes. But Anthony, as Director of Data Management for Cynozure, do you want to spend a minute or so talking about the services that Cynozure offer in this space and how we can help organisations?
Yeah, look, considering the time, I'm going to kind of distill it into 3 ways. And, you know, we can see here there are specific services that we provide and have provided before, helping people focus on specific problems around quality of data to enable outcomes. So we're talking about that product data example I just mentioned there. But if I was to really distill the ethos of what we do, it's all about, you know, bringing momentum to organizations, helping organizations get started on that data management journey. Or if they're on that journey and they're floundering, failing, or lacking momentum, then that's where we can come in and help and support, you know, bringing a hugely talented team on board to help accelerate the journey and, you know, put our shoulder to the wheel and move you forward and get you going. So that's really crucial to what we do. Alongside coming and giving you some impetus and be a catalyst, is actually help you establish the capabilities yourself. It's not about us coming in there to do all the work. Much of what we do is about helping you to learn. And, you know, back to one of my famous analogies, it's a bit like swimming lessons. We're here to get in the pool with you and help you learn the strokes. Then we'll get out the pool and walk alongside you, and then we walk away and you can swim by yourself. And that's what we can do in terms of knowledge transfer and getting your own capabilities built. And everything we do is all about outcomes, business outcomes, as we've talked about for the last 30 minutes. It's not about boiling the ocean and building data management capabilities for you know, just because we're required to, but it's actually with purpose and tackling it in an order that's going to get you set up for success with your business goals.
Great, thank you. And I think we did have a way that our audience members could help today, and a call to action to anyone's listening. If you want to share it in the chat, feel free. There's absolutely no obligation, but we did want to, you know, encourage a discussion around what is one thing that people could take away and maybe do differently when they're talking about data management with their stakeholders. I've definitely took away finding an exec sponsor and changing the language. So thank you, Rose, Anthony. I know others will have taken perhaps different things away from the session today. I always get the question on these webinars, will it be recorded and can I have access to it? The answer is yes, absolutely. I think this goes out automatically. It might take 24 hours for it to process, but you will have it. And if you do have colleagues in your organisation that you think would benefit from watching this, feel free to share it with them. We'd be delighted if you did. And all that's left to say is thank you so much for joining us, and a big thank you to Rose and Anthony for sharing their insight with us this afternoon.
My pleasure. Lovely to see you all.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.